The sun dipped low over the parched expanse of Dusty Hollow, New Mexico, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt where Samuel Redhawk, 62, leaned against his battered 1969 Ford pickup. The year was 1992, and the desert wind carried a gritty mix of dust and regret. Samuel, born Selayaji under the vast Navajo sky, clutched a faded photograph, its edges worn soft from decades of handling. The image, a relic from 1954, captured three young men on the steps of a mission school, their faces solemn under the weight of starched collars and forced smiles. Behind them, a nun in a stiff gray habit stood like a sentinel, her rosary glinting in the sunlight. For 38 years, this photograph had been Samuel's anchor, a tether to the brothers he'd lost. Triplets named Bidzil, Hastin, and Tahoma, their Navajo names stripped away by the boarding school that remade them as Benjamin, Henry, and Thomas. Samuel took a slow sip from a flask of cheap bourbon, the burn grounding him as memories clawed their way to the surface. He'd been 18 when the Bureau of Indian Affairs descended on their home in Black Mesa, wielding paperwork and promises of a better future. Their mother had died in a car accident when the triplets were born, and their father, a vocal advocate for tribal land rights, was serving a sentence for protesting government seizures. The authorities labeled the boys wards of the state, and Samuel, barely an adult, couldn't stop them from being taken to St. Jerome's Indian boarding school in Arizona. There, Navajo words were forbidden, replaced by English names and Catholic hymns. Samuel saw his brothers only during chapel, their eyes meeting across rows of pews, silent promises to hold on to who they were. The worst day came in 1954, during a staged press visit to showcase the school's success in civilizing Native children. The triplets, then 14, were chosen for their photogenic faces, Bidzil's sharp wit, Hastin's quiet strength, and Tahoma's infectious grin made them perfect for the newspaper's narrative of redemption. Samuel remembered the flash of cameras, the nuns' approving nods, and the way his brothers stood rigid, their spirits dimmed but not broken. The next morning, they were gone. Their beds were empty, their names erased from the roster. When Samuel demanded answers, the nuns locked him in a basement room for 3 days, the darkness broken only by the sting of a switch across his back. Forget them, they said, but he never could. At 20, Samuel fled St. Jerome's, slipping away during a work detail. He wandered the Southwest, chasing whispers of his brothers, rumors of Native boys sent to foster homes, adopted by distant families, or worse, lost to the system. He worked as a ranch hand, a mechanic, a drifter, always showing the photograph to strangers in diners, gas stations, and bars. The years carved lines into his face, and bourbon became his companion, dulling the ache of failure. Dusty Hollow had been his home for a decade, not because he'd found a lead, but because its desolate quiet matched the emptiness inside him. The photograph lived in his glove box, alongside a leather pouch holding a turquoise pendant etched with his birth name, a gift from his father before everything fell apart. The pickup's engine coughed to life as Samuel drove to the only store in town, a weathered building called Maria's Goods. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and Maria Alvarez, 58, looked up from the counter. Her dark hair, streaked with gray, was pulled into a loose bun, and her eyes held a warmth that cut through Samuel's guarded exterior. "Sam," she said, her voice carrying a faint Spanish lilt. "Back for your usual?" He managed a half smile. Maria was the one person in Dusty Hollow who didn't judge the bourbon in his hand or the weight in his eyes. Over the years, their conversations had grown from small talk to confessions shared over coffee in the store's quiet hours. "Caught me," Samuel replied, grabbing a bottle from the cooler. At the counter, he fumbled with a handful of crumpled bills, his heart sinking as he realized he was short. Last week's repair on the pickup's radiator had drained him, and his next check was days away. Maria watched, her expression softening. "Sam, when's the last time you ate something that didn't come from a can?" He shrugged, embarrassed. "Money's tight. I'll settle up when my check comes." Maria leaned forward, her hands on the counter. "I've seen that photo you carry, the one you stare at when you think no one's watching. Come to church with me Sunday. Might do you some good." Samuel's instinct was to refuse. The boarding school had soured him on religion, its hymns tied to memories of punishment. He'd also drifted from Navajo ceremonies, feeling like an outsider to his own heritage. "Church isn't my thing, Maria," he said quietly. "Not sure your God has room for someone like me." Her eyes sparkled with determination. "Here's the deal. Sit through one service at Our Lady of the Dunes, and I'll cover that bottle. If you hate it, I'll throw in another for your trouble." 2 bottles for an hour of his time was a bargain, and Maria's sincerity was hard to resist. "Fine," he said, "but it's for the bourbon, not salvation." She grinned. "Deal. Service starts at 10 a.m. Look for the white cross by the canyon road. And Sam? Try to stay sober for it." Back in his truck, Samuel dug through his belongings for something presentable. His best shirt was faded but clean, and he splashed water on his face from a jug, combing his graying hair with his fingers. As he drove to Our Lady of the Dunes, he wondered why he'd agreed. The church was a modest adobe structure, its white cross gleaming under the morning sun. A dozen cars lined the gravel lot, their owners dressed in pressed clothes, a stark contrast to Samuel's worn flannel. Maria met him at the entrance, her smile bright. "You showed up, Sam. I'm proud of you." She looped her arm through his, guiding him inside. The church was simple, with sunlight filtering through stained glass windows depicting desert scenes, cacti and mesas bathed in reds and golds. The air smelled of cedar and wax, and a small altar held a vase of yucca blossoms. Samuel followed Maria to a pew near the back, self-conscious of his rumpled appearance and the faint bourbon scent clinging to him. He slouched, arms crossed, counting the minutes until he could claim his bottles. The congregation stood for a hymn, and Samuel rose reluctantly, lips moving silently to words he barely remembered. When they knelt, he stayed seated, ignoring curious glances. The priest, Father Gabriel, was in his early 60s, his face weathered but kind. "He's been here forever," Maria whispered. "Good man, knows everyone's story." Samuel nodded, distracted by a group of monks standing near the altar. Their dark green robes, floor-length and hooded, set them apart from the local parish brothers. "Who are they?" he muttered, nudging Maria. She frowned, studying them. "Not from around here. Those robes, they're different. Must be visiting for something special." The monks' stillness was unsettling, their faces shadowed but distinctly native, high cheekbones, dark eyes that stirred a pang in Samuel's chest, a reminder of his brothers. Father Gabriel's sermon spoke of redemption through suffering, of finding purpose in pain. Samuel barely listened, his gaze fixed on the monks. Their presence felt like a thread pulling at his past, unraveling memories of St. Jerome's and its rigid discipline. Near the service's end, Father Gabriel made an announcement. "Our guests, the Brothers of St. Augustine's Order, are on their annual pilgrimage through New Mexico's parishes. They offer silent prayers for healing. Anyone seeking guidance can submit a prayer request, which they'll take to their monastery for contemplation." Maria nudged him. "Write something, Sam. It's worth a try." He shook his head. "I came for the bourbon, not miracles." But as they moved toward the exit, Father Gabriel approached. "Maria, always a pleasure," he said, then turned to Samuel. "And you must be Sam. First time here?" Samuel hesitated, then found himself speaking. "Haven't been to church since St. Jerome's boarding school. Your sermon, it hit something." The admission surprised him, the weight of his past loosening under the priest's steady gaze. Father Gabriel's eyes softened. "That's a heavy place to carry. What brought you back?" Samuel admitted his struggle with bourbon, the endless search for his brothers, though he kept the details vague. The priest gestured to the monks. "The Brothers of St. Augustine are cloistered, dedicated to prayer and silence. They only meet the public during these visits. Write a prayer request, light a candle, and they'll pray over it at their monastery. In a few weeks, you'll get a response with what they discern." Curiosity stirred. A prayer for his brother's whereabouts seemed pointless, but harmless. Guided by a monk, Samuel approached a table with prayer forms. His hand trembled as he wrote, "Please tell me where my brothers are. Bidzil, Hastin, Tahoma." He lit a candle, the flame flickering, and crossed himself awkwardly, the gesture unfamiliar after decades. As he slid the form into a wooden box, he noticed the monk's features, Navajo, like his own. On impulse, he spoke softly. "If your God's listening, Stronger than our ancestors' spirits? Tell me where my brothers are. If he does, I'll come back." The monk's face remained impassive, but as Samuel mentioned his brothers, a flicker crossed his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. As Samuel turned to leave, he glanced back. The monk was lifting the prayer box, moving toward a side door. His gait was uneven, favoring one leg, and a gust of wind lifted his hood, revealing a scar across his left cheek. Samuel froze. Haston had a scar like that, from a fall during a punishment at St. Jerome's, when he tripped on a fence post and cut his face. The memory hit hard, sharp, and undeniable. He opened his mouth to call out, but the monk vanished through the door. Another monk gestured for Samuel to move along. He stumbled back to Maria and Father Gabriel, his voice unsteady. "That monk, the limp, the scar. It's like my brother Haston, from St. Jerome's, 1954. They vanished after a press visit. I've been looking ever since." Father Gabriel's eyes widened. "That's a heavy burden, Sam. Tell me more." The words poured out. The photograph, the triplets, the school's silence, the beatings for asking questions. "I need to know if that was Haston," Samuel said, voice breaking. The priest placed a hand on his shoulder. "The Brothers of St. Augustine are private, founded by Father Dominic, who passed years ago. His son, Brother Ezekiel, leads them now. Many are native, chosen for their spiritual depth. Their monastery's location isn't shared, but trust your prayer. Their responses often bring clarity." Samuel sensed evasion but didn't press. Maria broke the silence. "Let's get your bourbon, Sam." At the store, she handed him 2 bottles with a gentle warning. "Don't drink them all at once, and maybe come back next Sunday?" He nodded, distracted, his mind on the scarred monk. As he reached his truck, he found a flyer under the wiper, a schedule for the Brothers of St. Augustine's parish tour, listing dates but no monastery address. If that monk was Haston, Samuel couldn't wait weeks for a response. He needed answers now. Sipping from one bottle, he studied the flyer. The next stop was a church in Redstone, 50 miles north. He started the truck, the engine grumbling as he drove past Our Lady of the Dunes one last time. In the distance, he spotted a plain white van, the monk's transport, he was sure. A young volunteer was loading boxes into the back, likely the prayer requests. Throwing caution to the wind, Samuel followed, keeping his distance through the twisting canyon roads. The landscape grew rugged, the van a speck against red rock cliffs. After an hour, a compound appeared, surrounded by a high fence topped with prayer flags. A gate blocked the entrance, guarded by a young Navajo man. Samuel parked behind a boulder, watching as the van entered. The compound was stark, more like a detention center than a monastery, its concrete buildings squat and unadorned. The guard scanned the road, his posture alert. Samuel waited, the bourbon bottle warm in his hand, until the compound grew still. He pulled out his turquoise pendant, tracing his birth name, Sela Yaji, etched on the back. From a tin box, he retrieved the photograph and a sketch he'd drawn at St. Jerome's. Haston tying Tahoma's shoe while Bitsil watched, humming. The scar, the limp. It had to be Haston. The gate creaked open, and a dusty sedan rolled out, heading south. Through the gap, Samuel glimpsed 2 monks in green robes, one comforting another whose shoulders shook as if sobbing. A third figure, in plain clothes, ushered them inside with a firm grip. The gate slammed shut. The scene felt wrong, like St. Jerome's punishments cloaked in faith. Samuel approached the gate, boots crunching on gravel. The guard stepped out, hand on a radio. "No trespassing. This is private property." "I'm not here to cause trouble," Samuel said, raising his hands. "Is this the Brothers of St. Augustine? I need to see Brother Ezekiel." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Brother Ezekiel's office is in Sagebrush, 30 miles east. Only the brothers live here." Samuel pulled out the pendant, letting it catch the light. The guard's expression softened, recognizing the Navajo craftsmanship. "I can't help much," he said quietly, "but find Brother Ezekiel in Sagebrush. Follow the main road. Don't say I sent you." Samuel pressed, "Are the brothers safe here?" "I saw one crying. Is this a sanctuary or something else?" The guard's face hardened, but fear flickered in his eyes. "We all have roles. I keep quiet and protect my own. Leave." Samuel drove to Sagebrush, the road winding through mesas as the sun set. The town's faded sign read, "Welcome to Sagebrush, formerly Selly Valley." The name sparked a memory. 12 years ago, he'd passed through Selly Valley, meeting a rancher named Clara Begay, who'd given him a meal and a lead that went nowhere. Her kindness had lingered, a rare spark in his search. In Sagebrush, he found Brother Ezekiel's office, a small adobe building, not a church. The sedan from the compound was parked outside, engine still warm. Samuel knocked, but no answer came. The door was unlocked, and he stepped into a sparse room with religious icons and a faint smell of incense. Dirt tracks streaked with blood led to a back door, beyond which stone steps descended into a cellar. From below came a man's cries, a belt's crack, and a man's voice reciting scripture with cold conviction. Samuel's heart raced. This wasn't prayer, it was torture. He bolted to his truck and drove to the Sagebrush Sheriff's Station, a squat building smelling of coffee and dust. Bursting in, he said, "I need to report a crime at Brother Ezekiel's house. Someone's being tortured in a cellar. Screams, a belt, blood on the floor." The sheriff, a stocky man named Roy, squinted. "You've been drinking, haven't you?" Samuel admitted to one sip, hours ago. "That's not the issue. Someone's being hurt." Roy's deputy, a younger man, scoffed. "Brother Ezekiel's a saint around here. Sagebrush, used to be Selly Valley, has been peaceful since he took over the order. You're making wild claims." He pointed to a shelf with photos. "That's Father Dominic, the order's founder, and that's Brother Ezekiel, his son." Samuel froze. The man in the photo was the nun from his 1954 photograph, now older, dressed as a monk. "That's him," Samuel said. "He was at St. Jerome's when my brothers vanished." Roy's face hardened. "You're trespassing and making false claims. Leave town or I'll arrest you." Samuel left, his mind racing. The police were protecting Ezekiel. He needed help. At a payphone, he found Clara Begay's number in an old notebook. She'd promised to help if he ever needed it. "Clara, it's Sam Redhawk from Selly Valley, 12 years ago. I think I found my brothers. Brother Ezekiel's torturing someone, and the sheriff won't act." Clara's voice was steady. "I'm in Redstone, not far. Meet me at the Sagebrush Diner in 20 minutes." She arrived in a dusty truck, her face lined but kind. Samuel recounted everything. The monk with Hastin's scar, the compound, the cellar. "The sheriff's in Ezekiel's pocket," he said. Clara nodded. "My cousin Lena's with the Navajo Nation police. They can act if tribal members are involved. Let's call her." At the diner's payphone, Clara spoke to Lena, who promised to bring a team. "Stay hidden near Ezekiel's house," Lena said. "We'll handle it." They parked Clara's truck behind a ridge near the adobe house. The sedan was still there, lights glowing. Two figures in white robes dragged a man in a green monk's habit toward the car, his face bloodied, body limp. Samuel's breath caught. The scar on the man's cheek was Hastin's. Before they could load him, sirens wailed. Two Navajo Nation police trucks and an SUV pulled up. Lena, a tall woman with a commanding presence, stepped out. Samuel and Clara approached cautiously. Ezekiel emerged, his face a mask of fury, still recognizable from 1954. "This is church property," he shouted. "You have no authority." Lena's voice was firm. "We have reports of assault involving tribal members. We're searching the premises." The sheriff arrived, reluctant, but Lena's team moved in. Paramedics tended to the injured monk, who whispered in Dinabizad, "Selayaji, Sam." It was Hastin. Samuel knelt beside him, tears welling. "I found you." Hastin, breaking his vow of silence, said, "Ezekiel targeted native monks, believed we had spiritual gifts. When we couldn't produce visions, he beat us." Lena's team searched the cellar, finding chains, bloodstains, and a shrine blending Catholic and Navajo symbols. Ezekiel and his aides were arrested. Hastin, stable, revealed Bidzil and Tahoma were at the monastery, faking visions to survive. Lena coordinated a raid, and by dawn, Samuel was reunited with his brothers at the hospital. Bidzil and Tahoma, worn but alive, embraced him, calling him Selayaji. They shared stories of 1954, Father Dominic selecting them for a special order, the school falsifying records, the decades of abuse under Ezekiel's control. In a quiet hospital room, Samuel showed them the sketch from St. Jerome's. Bidziel laughed, tears in his eyes. "You kept this?" Tahoma touched the pendant around Samuel's neck. "We'll find our way back to who we are." The investigation exposed Ezekiel's crimes, freeing other monks. The brothers, together again, began to heal, blending Navajo traditions with a newfound peace. Samuel felt the weight of 38 years lift, replaced by hope. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales of resilience and reunion.